this video, we're going to have a look at the latest version of Piotnet Grid because it integrates with bricks. So if we head over to their documentation and we just scroll down here to facet for bricks, you will see that they have an integration, and very basically we have the section, and in the section you have your containers with your queries and your facets, and then there's a way then to link those facets to the query loop. So in the previous video, I created this query loop with WooCommerce, and of course you can go to the different categories. It would show you the products in that category. Say for music, we'd only have the music, and for shop, we'd have all the shop products. So what we're going to have a look now is adding a left-hand column, and in that left-hand column, we're going to add some facets here using Piotnet Grid. So if I go and have a look at the installation, I've installed Piotnet Grid and activated it, but we don't have any content for any of the elements. So the easiest way to do that, of course, then is to import some demo content and then just apply it where we want to apply it. So there is this under the archive templates. You'll see they have a whole shop set up, and you'll see they've got variations and categories, price slider. So I'm just going to import that so we don't have to go and recreate each of those and look at how we integrate. So once we've uploaded, right in the archive template, we have this archive. I'm going to edit with Piotnet Grid just to have a look at the different elements available to us. And I'll show you how you can get the quickly track down the different facets. So when you click on a facet here, you'll notice that this changes, and then you'll see that is selected facet number 3. And if we then click on edit, it opens it in a new tab. So facet number 3 is the one that we want to run down the left-hand side. And then they also have this default sorting, which looks pretty much like the default WooCommerce sorting. If I click on that, you see the drop down, and this is called facet number 4. And I'm going to open that in a new tab as well. So now that I've loaded Piotnet Grid and we've included some facets, I'm going to refresh Brick so that it pulls some of that facet information through, and then we're going to change our layout. So this is the layout that we have at the moment, and what we're going to do now is add some more containers and bring through some of the facets. So first thing I'm going to do then is head over to the section where I have the shop, and I'll add a container. And in that container, I'm going to move that up to the top. I want to just test with a facet. So this particular facet, then I'm going to do the sorting facet that we saw. So we'll add facet, and the facet that we're going to add then is going to be, we know it is facet number 4. So facet number 4 was the filter one, and the grid type is going to be a bricks element. And the kind of query then is going to be applied to a container. And I'll save that, head over to the website. Let's just see if that facet is showing. So the facet is showing, and if I select, you'll see that it is being applied. If I say low to high, then you'll see that the price is from low to high. So the facet is being applied and the facet is working. Right, the next thing that we want to do then is maybe add a left-hand column, and let's just check that the facets pull through on the left-hand side. So back to bricks, and we need to change the layout a bit. So the section now, instead of being displaying the way that it is now, I'd like that first container to be layout and a width of 20%, and then the second container, I'd like that style to have a width of 80%. And you'll see that that's not going to work because that container is for the individual products. Right, so we're going to just need to massage the layout a bit. So what I think I'm going to do then is add another container. Right, so we'll add another container. I'm going to move that up. This container, I'm going to give a width of 80%. And then inside that container, I'm going to nest the shop. And now you can see that we have the layout that we want. So let's just get everything working as it should. So content, and in that container, we do want to have the products moving across, but at the moment they stretch right off. They're not following into the next row, and the reason for that is because I need to then say flex wrap and wrap. Now they fall over into the next row, and that looks fine. Other thing I'm just going to make sure of is in this container that the content is aligned to the start, and the same with the initial content, also aligned to the start, so that everything starts at the top of the page. Then I'm going to head over to the website and see what we've got. So right, there we have our sort now is on the left hand side. Let's see if it's still applied. A to Z, and yes, our filter is being applied. Now what I'd like to do is bring in those items down the left, and we know that is facet number 3. So head over to bricks, and I'm going to add another facet, or what I'll do is I'll just duplicate that one, and in the second one, facet, I'm changing that to facet number 3. It's a bricks element and it's a container. Right, so now we've pulled that in, and let's head over to the archive. Right, and let's see what we got. Right, so we have some elements pulled in here. Let's have a look at clothing. So that should just show clothing, and you'll see that decor and music are not included. If I select the item again, it goes away and it resets. So if I go to music now we have music showing, and you'll also notice here that to deselect, I can either select music or at the top, or over here where I've selected music, I can also deselect. Right, so that's how we can select or deselect. Then I have some items here, and interestingly enough, it was in a test I did with some facets which I deleted. So I'd like to just see then why the deleted items are still showing. So if I go into facets, I only have the relevant ones, and then I have these 3 in the trash, and it's one of these 3, and it's still being pulled through. So let me delete permanently. Head back to the website, we'll refresh, and now nothing is showing. Under published, we still have the 3 facets, and if I head over to the right, so it looks like maybe we're going to need to change some of those facet names. Now that it was pulling, it actually looks like it was pulling through deleted content. Right, so loading up now, and if I click here, it still references facet number 3. And if I go to my facets here, and I edit with Piotnet Grid, we have facet number 3. If I head over here, let me refresh in bricks. Somehow the deleted items, and so that is just something to keep an eye on. If you do delete some stuff, and you'll actually see here, that's working fine, that's fine. If I go to the facet now, and you'll see here that there is an issue. So if you've deleted a facet and it has the same name as a new facet, you might find that you would need to reselect again. So the first one we had there was facet number 4, and the second facet was facet number 3. So just remember, if the facets correlate with the same names, you'll pick up that issue if you delete. Right, and then we're back, and now we also have the search, which is correct, and if you'll see it's an interactive search. As you type in, it does the search. Let's have a look. Container, right. If you find that something isn't working, there is another setting that can be applied, and that is here to the container that contains the query loop. If you scroll down at the bottom here, you'll see facets that apply. And you'll notice that the delete items are still showing. So let's add facet 3 and facet number 4. Now that we've added those facets and we refresh the page, you will see now that bean applies to the beanies, and I can try another one here to hoodie. As I type in hood, the content is refreshed and that works great. And if I type in something that doesn't exist, let's say Ford, then the filtering doesn't change. Right, so that's sorted that out. You'll notice down here that the colors have pulled through. Now, the reason the colors have pulled through is because if I go over to the actual attributes, and I've spared you the pain of watching me add a color to each attribute, and I configure the terms, then you'll see that in the term now you have this new Piotnet Grid term color. Once you've allocated the color there, the color is then immediately updated. So if I change this blue to maybe more of a turquoise blue, well, turquoise green, but you get the meaning, and I refresh, then you'll see that the color has changed. And of course, the filtering works then also based on only the items that have the color. And then, of course, it highlights which categories, the price slider changes. If I was to deselect, everything moves back. If I want to change the order of the items here, maybe I want to move the price slider up and we don't have any brands. So I go over to my facet number 3. The brand section I can delete. The price slider, if I want to move that up, I'm going to select it. And I should be able to drag that up, maybe just need to drag it on that label. And so now we have the search, then we have the price. I don't need the term product categories to show. So I'm going to head over here and look for where I can disable the title. So there's product categories is the label, and I'm going to hide the facet label. For color, I don't think I need to have a label. I think it's quite self-explanatory, and I'm going to add the color. And then I'll just leave it for size. Let's save. And we'll just see how those changes now have taken effect. Right, so now we have the price moved up, no more facet titles here. So yeah, that's looking a bit better, and I just left the size one in. So that's working. Now what I would like to do is move my default sorting. Maybe I'm going to move that to above the products again. So to do that, I'm going to head back here. And now I'm going to move that facet, which was facet number 4, and I'd like to place it above the elements here. So just drag that across and pop that in. Now that's in. Save. Head over to the website, and you'll see that default sorting has moved, and that's working. And now I can use that in conjunction with the slider on the left hand side, and you'll see that the filter and the left hand side elements are all working together. Great, that's good to see. And you'll also see then the slider values also appear at the top, and by deselecting to deselect, the filter is back to default. If I go into something which has far less information now, it only shows the facets that apply. So that would be the category, and because we didn't delete the title for size still shows. It would be nice if the facet title didn't show if there was no available facet, but that seems to be a default setting in Piotnet, which can't be changed. But you'll notice that as you go through each category, that those items down the left are updated, and then you can select as required. So if I then went to my facet size, because it is a bit irritating, I'm going to hide the facet label, save. Yeah, I'm not sure of the logic why the label has to show if the facet's missing. Surely they would be linked together somehow. So now if I go over to music, you'll see I just have price and search. Right, looking a lot neater. I don't need this reset button at the bottom. Let's just see how that works. Maybe we can just leave that. So if I did say t-shirts and at the bottom I click reset, then yeah, maybe we can just leave that there. Right. If you want to change the size of the elements, then let's just head over to that facet. So we're looking for facet number 4. So easiest way, or one of the ways to do it, is just to head over to the particular facet. Here it is here, and when you select it under settings, you should then see a link to that particular item. Sometimes this interface does seem to be a little bit buggy, like at the moment. Right, so it's not giving me, I click here, it's not giving me, otherwise then just to go through to facets, we know it's facet number 4. You can change the names as well. If we just edit it as a normal post, we can change it then from facet 4 to whatever we want. Or over here, we can just call that filter. Right, so we've made that change. Okay, we need to save that setting first. Right, and then over here, we have the options. So let's have a look at style and see if there's anything here that allows us to change the width in an easy way. So under style, we have spacing. I'm not sure what spacing that's changing. Default text color typography, the facet field, input maximum width. Okay, so that's where we can change the width. And if we save that and head over to the website, right, the width has changed. If we want to move it to the right, then I think the easiest would probably be here in the container. And then we must, let's just see if that would do it. The facet, are there any settings? Under style, layout, size, maybe okay, so we can see what happens here. So you can change the width here, but then it messes with the layout. So then inside the container, let's add another container and move that up. Let's move the facet into that container. This container then has a width of 100%, and we align everything in that container to the right hand side. There we go. And this container then, yeah, everything should then be fine. And the main container then, we can leave it with the center content. Right, so now when we refresh, then we have the default sorting here on the right hand side, which is probably more of the expected position, and everything's still working. Right, yeah, everything working. If I then navigate to the next category, to music, yeah, everything is working then as we would like. The last thing that we can do then is add some pagination here. So let's see how we would add pagination. And we did have a container, and we're going to just delete the product pagination there, and we're going to add our own facet. So head over to facets. Right, let's add a new facet. So we add new. We'll call it pagination, publish, edit with Piotnet Grid. Right, now we're going to add pagination. So it's a facet that we're adding. Right, still nothing under WooCommerce, no. So we add a facet. We need to drag and drop. And the kind of facet that we're looking for, let's have a look at the options here. So I would imagine it's a full, is it a load? So there we go. So when we click on load, we get the items here, and then we have a choice. So that's the loading type page. So the facet action is load, and then we get these options for the loading type, and then we can look at a load more. There we have the load more button. So we'll just leave it at the standard. Then let's have a look at the styling. Facet load more. The background color, let's change that to black. Now that looks a bit better. Let's add a bit of padding in there. Let's add a bit more padding. Right, there's our load more button. And so we know that this is the pagination tab. Then what we need to do is just refresh. So let's save that and refresh so that it pulls through the new facet. And then I'm going to head over to this container, and I'm going to add a facet. Right, click on the facet and then facet default. So we're looking for pagination. It's going to be to a bricks element. The bricks element is a container. Then I'm going to go to the container with the query loop, right? And in the facets that apply, we're going to add pagination, and let's save. And let's go and have a look and see if that's working. So reload, head down. Is the load more working? So the load more is working. So when it loads more, it's actually pulling through everything in that, including the default sorting. So first of all, let's just check the position here of this. So let's move that container out. Aha. Didn't like that. And so that would just centralize. So we're just going to do some fancy footwork with the layout here. So, okay, that's to be expected. And now if I load more, is it just the products? Yeah. And what you'll see is it actually fills up the grid. So load more is working correctly now. Now what we need to do is just update the layout of the page. So to do that, I'm going to go over to the section. And what I need to do is just get everything formatted better. So let's add a container. Right, so we only want 2 containers. one for the left-hand column, one for the right-hand column. So I'm going to put a container then after the elements for the left-hand side, and everything else can move over. Right, so this facet now is in the first container, and that will have a width of 20%. Then the next container will have a width of 80%, and that will contain the load more. So the container with the product loop is here. Then we have this facet, which we want at the top. And then we have the load more. And okay, so what we want is to have, I think it's one additional container. Am I getting mad? Container. Right, so now, okay, so save that. Right, so there we have the left-hand column, the right-hand column, load more, and I think this is going to load. Yeah, and that's now loading correctly. So yeah, so now it's only loading the products that it should and no longer bringing in that default sorting. So if the default sorting pulls through, it just means you have to separate some of the items. What we do want to do though, this is the container. Right, so we want to move this container over so that it's central on the right hand side. Right, so load more now, perfectly positioned, and the products are being pulled through as they should. Right, so that's looking good. And then there's just some other small layout changes. So for example, what you're noticing here is that the column heights are not as we would like them to be. That should do it. And now when we refresh, you'll see that we have things just getting back to the way they should be. Great. Now, the other thing that we can do, you can then, of course, change the width for the size of the page. For things, if you wanted the full width of the page or not. And I'm going to take a chance here. That'll immediately make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's looking better. So there we have our products. Everything's working. The load more works nicely. And the load more should then only appear where there is a load more option. As you can see, no load more if there are no products. And then everything else should be working as before. Added the pagination and everything's working. Let's just do a double check for mobile. Maybe the easiest way is to have a look at that inside bricks. Not sure why this message is showing. It's obviously clearly not an error on the front end. So let's just head over to mobile, and immediately we see there's a bit of a congestion here with the Piotnet items. So let's change the layout then. So it would be this container, and then change that to a row direction. We're also going to need to change the container widths. So the width then to this section, sorry, we should start off at the top of the section where we need to change the layout and make that rows. Then we have, you'll see here we have the filter, then we have the sorting, and then we have products. That would make logical sense. Let's see how that translates. So yeah, it's getting rather narrow there on that facet. So that container there, I think we'll change that width then to 100%. And it looks like we should add some padding. Right, so then it would be products. We have the filter and everything else is looking good. And the final one, that then we have this container here. And let's just change that to 98% width. So it doesn't go quite to the sides. Yeah, so that's looking fine. So let's save that. We'll just refresh and then we'll check the mobile look here. Right, so on the mobile, right, so there we have the filtering, everything's working. And basically you would then first make your selection and then scroll down to the items. And everything is working as it should. Right, just one check. I'm not sure if there would be a way to collapse the facet or the collection of facets here on mobile. So let's just check under advanced, visibility, custom CSS, backgrounds, borders. Under advanced, right, under settings, alignment. So nothing here to say that we could maybe collapse the facet in mobile and then click a button and then the facet would expand. And then we could do the facet so the facet doesn't take up so much space before the content. No, there's only that. And then under settings, we only have, so nothing immediately obvious for mobile, and nothing on the page that immediately talks about anything for mobile. Right, so yeah, if there is a setting, I'll have a look at that. But right, so everything working, looks good on mobile and on desktop. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching.